will one day bear children who will be smart and who will be driven, because there was nothing about her girls that wasn't smart and driven and created for educated lives that move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I would defend Mama Benitez in that respect.
No, I'm not hating on Mama Benitez, but that's not what Mama Benitez said when she presented her girls to her brand new neighbors. That's my point.
Exactly. And
like all those assets that you mentioned are very true, but that is not what she highlighted, and that's my point.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this this cocktail party. So the girls get an invitation. Well, really, very sister Janae gets the invitation because she is kind of dating / hanging out with Angela. So the whole family gets invited over to the rich people's cocktail party. And, oh, my God, just the description of how they dressed and with Mama bringing the food. I mean, you could tell there was a socioeconomic difference there because if you get invited to a cocktail party, you know you don't show up with food catered. I mean, they have it catered, or you're assuming that they're going to have food and drink, and all you need to do is show up and be pretty.
Right.
And then you have the dynamic between how they spoke and talked once they were in there and how loud they were. And, wow, you have classy versus hood, and it's all mixed up. So, you guys, what do you think about this cocktail party?
So, Michelle, you want to start or you want me to start? I got some feelings about this cocktail party.
God, I feel like I'm in a position to defend Brooklyn. So here's the thing, and this is where we discuss the culture clash. If you are from a Caribbean household, and I'm from a pseudo-Caribbean, South American, non-Spanish speaking household, so there's like a whole bunch going on there. If you are from any form of Caribbean household and someone invites you over for an event, unless they stipulate, when I was growing up, you took a platter. You took a gift for the hostess, and chances are, if that was a Caribbean home, that hostess gift was a gift of food and culture. It speaks to more than just bringing a gift of food. It's a gift of culture. It's a gift of home, and it's a gift of, here is me presenting to you what I would give my own in love. So she didn't just bring a platter of food. She brought love. Now, granted, this was not necessarily the situation that they were walking into, but I'm going to respect Mama Benitez for the fact that she was bringing the kind of love that you bring to a household when you are of Caribbean, South American roots. And so while it was out of place, I'm going to argue that they were in Mama Benitez's place. And Mama Benitez's neighborhood means you bring the food, you bring the platter, you bring the love. Now, Mama Benitez a little loud. That's Mama Benitez's culture and her love. And I understand that. I'm going to tell you, we were the only Caribbean family in the neighborhood when we first got there. I know what it means to be that family in the neighborhood. Now, our neighborhood was a different neighborhood, but all the same, you know, in the Caribbean, you bring a platter, and that platter comes with so much more. It's love, it's culture, it's welcoming, it's all of that. Mama Benitez may be loud, but that's how we spread love. Spread love, that's the Brooklyn way. So I'm going to just say that.
Okay.
I'm going to let Sierra jump on that. But that's my explanation. She was bringing so much more than that. She was also saying, here's my daughters. They are beautiful. They are worthy. But at the same time, she was also bringing that. I can't wait to hear what Sierra has to say.
Well, y'all can't see me, but I'm making a whole lot of faces because we can see each other on the street yard. But what I will say is that I already said this, but I grew up in the South. And in the South, when my mother took us anywhere, she said, you better not embarrass me. You better not embarrass me, or you better be on your best behavior.
That's a whole
and with that,
here.
I don't care what our culture was at home. You had better fit in wherever she took you. That's how I grew up. And the fact is, and maybe it's because Zuri, our central character, is a reader. Y'all, she loves books. She's like us. Okay, she's a book nerd, so she loves books. But she knew before they even walked into the door that her mom was too loud for the event. Mm-hmm. She knew that she had dressed inappropriately, and she even said that, like, her other sisters are dressed, she said, like they're going to prom. But her toes weren't done. Her shoes had strings on them, like they were borrowed sandals, and they had strings on them. But and I can already imagine how that looks because I hate that. And she wore a skirt that her mom wore when her mom was a teenager. Now, granted, her parents aren't very old, but she had on like her mama's skirt, her sister's shoes, her nails weren't done, and her other sisters looked like they were going to prom. So she knew, she was very much aware that there was another way that mom could have behaved. Why mom chose not to do that, I have no clue. But yeah, so I don't fully buy what I don't fully take hold of what Michelle is saying about mom, because even her daughter knew. At least she's thinking it, like, okay, mama's a little too loud. Everybody can hear her, not just the people at the door. And it's interesting in this scene is that the father and our central character are still waiting to be invited in while mom just walks into the house. So that's another thing. So the cocktail party revealed quite a bit. Some of it I think is cultural, but some of it is also by choice as well. And I agree there's a cultural component, but I also think mom was making a statement that maybe, like, you not going to change us. I don't care how much money you bring to the neighborhood or what you got. Like, this is how we do it here. And so I think it had a little bit more edge to it in my interpretation of what mom did, because obviously she knows she can be different because her daughters are aware. That's me.
I absolutely agree, Sierra. And you brought it up, Michelle, earlier. Code switching. She knows what to do when she goes certain places.
Absolutely.
You don't have to tell her. She knew. And she absolutely knew, okay, if I'm going to show up here with all this food, even your 17-year-old daughter knew better. Yes, and it might be a cultural thing if she knows, if she going to a Caribbean house, or if she would have went to see Madrina, for example, then yes, bring the platter of food. But you've all you talked about was all these rich people and what they did to this house, and I can't wait to see what inside the house. And you already know that rich people act differently than just the normal guys around the way. So bringing that food and the shoes, because Zuri pointed out the shoes, that she also let up the shoes. She knew she was inappropriate, but she did it anyway. And I agree with Sierra. Maybe it was the initial deep down, no, we hood, this is Brooklyn, you're not going to change us. I don't care how rich you are. This is what we do. This is how we get down in the hood.
I saw some of Zuri. I saw some of the personality that Zuri has. I was like, oh, that, like, a touch of that may come from Mama. Because actually when the invitation came, like, she was like, they knew it was because of Janae's relationship with Ainsley that they even got the invitation. So they knew this was a big deal to get this invitation, that normally they probably would not have been on the guest list, because there was a little bit of everybody there, not just people that looked like the Darcy family or like them. There was a little bit of
everybody. And as women of color, we know we are given that talk when we're growing up. You know how to act in mixed company. You know what not to say and what not to do. And maybe that's a southern thing.
Okay, I'm going to argue about the concept of being an American-born kid to a parent that was raised someplace else. I understand Zuri pushing for being different, but Zuri also has a benefit of something her parents do not have. She is an American-born kid raised by two people who were raised outside of the country, and trust me, on so many levels, it's different. I remember being that kid walking into an event, and your mama has one idea of what that event is looking like, and you're like, oh, God. Now, if anyone has ever watched Ugly Betty, I think they demonstrated the best, where you have this character who regularly walks into situations that are not necessarily the situations that that the average person is thinking about, and you walk in with all of your culture because it's what you know. So I'm going to argue once again, and I could be wrong, but I'm going to argue that Mom walked in true belief of who she is. She might be showing off, but she's showing off her girls. That's the big thing she's showing off. She's showing off her cooking, and she's showing off her girls. I don't know that Mom is necessarily code switching, because if you've ever been raised by a Caribbean parent in America, you will understand they don't code switch. They are exactly who they are. My uncle still says tree instead of three, and it is because they don't code switch. They say it the way they believe it and the way they see it. So in that respect, I'm going to defend Mama to the end.
All right, so let's move on from Mama, and we're just going to agree to disagree on her. I want to know, with the different characters in the story, Madrina, I loved her character and the descriptive of her. For the listeners, Madrina is a neighbor, but she's more like an auntie to Zuri, and she is into the Afro-Caribbean. Don't want to say it's cultural, but it is kind of cultural, of the Santeria. And she's a priestess, and she dresses in her headdresses and her white. She does all of her mythical things that she gets down. She has her meetings in the basement that Zuri sneaks into. Mm-hmm. So what did you guys think of her character and how important she was to Zuri?
So, all right. So we don't have much time, so I'm going to tie these things together because we're about 15 minutes out. But so Madrina was also like their landlord to a certain extent. She owned where they lived, and Zuri, I think she grew to have an appreciation for the spirituality that Madrina brought to their lives, because she talked to them about love and about the future. And Zuri's parents, they're hardworking folks. And I can tell you a lot of the kind of deeper conversations actually came from Madrina and Zuri, and not necessarily her mother. And Madrina actually talked to her about love, about the rich boys, across the way, because as much as Zuri was fighting the attraction between herself and Darius, like Madrina saw the potential of that relationship, just like she saw it with Janae, the older sister, and Ainsley. And she was very, very real about her when Zuri was complaining about her sister and just getting distracted with her future over a boy. And she's like, but what about you? And she's like, I'm focused on this, this, and this. And also that boy. She didn't say that out loud, but in her head, she was still focused on that boy, to the point where I think in some ways she actually took Warren up on his offer because she was so attracted to Darius and she was fighting it. I think that's why she actually accepted his invitation to go out with him. And I think the other interesting person that we haven't mentioned yet, there's another gentleman in this story. His name is Colin. And Colin is 19 years old, and he's very, very helpful to, I'm going to call Zuri's spiritual mother. He's very, very helpful to her.
Her nephew, right?
Yeah. And ultimately, I feel like the biggest threats to Zuri's life were actually Warren and Colin. And you all will see why if you read the